Yeah, that's fine. In 1959, I was 19 years old, born in 1940. So 59 I was 19, and I ended up in Los Angeles. I had to go to Los Angeles for some reason. So I ended up there. I have no money. I don't know where I am. I'm in a big city. I don't know what I'm doing here. But, I was a kid on the run, so here I am in L.A. And one morning in North Hollywood, I went in a restaurant in North Hollywood, 1959, and there was the place was full, so there's no room anywhere, except for one seat at the counter. So I took the seat at the counter, and there was a girl sitting next to me. She was probably, I was 19, she was probably like 17 or so, a little younger than I. So we started talking, and come to find out, she only lived a couple blocks from me, and I only lived about 3 blocks in town, and she lived 2 blocks from me. She had walked downtown, and I had walked downtown. So we hung around town for a while, and then we walked home together. And then we started meeting on the Saturdays and Sundays. I'd meet her downtown, and we just hang out together. And then when we walk home, she lived 2 blocks further than me. So I never walked home with her, but she knew where I lived. And one night, it was on a Friday night, it was a very eventful thing that happens. One night, on a Friday night, she knocked on my door about 10 o'clock at night, and she said, "My dad wants to talk to you." And of course, I don't want to talk to anybody's dad. And I said, "I don't want to talk to him. I got nothing to say to him." And she said, "My father is a very important and interesting man. He's got something to tell you. You need to come with me." So I said, "Okay." So I went. And as I was walking with her up to the house, he happened by chance to be coming out of the house. And the moment I saw him, the hair raised up on the back of my neck because of the feeling, the involuntary feeling I got was so overwhelming. And I was shocked at the feeling I got from him. With an immediacy, I knew there's something strange about this man. I'm feeling it already. But I love it. It's not fearful. It's a trip. I don't know who this guy is, but I can't get enough of this feeling. And so he made come on in, and the thing I noticed about him immediately is I've never seen anyone more in control of themselves than him. He knew precisely what he was doing, the way he moved, his mannerisms, his whole demeanor was very strange. So come on in. And I thought, well, I don't know who this is, but I'm feeling something here. So I went in, and we're sitting on the sofa. I'm sitting on one end, he's sitting on the other end of the sofa. My girlfriend is sitting on the floor with her younger sister, about 10 years old. They're sitting on the floor. The mother is in the kitchen or somewhere in the back room, and he's just talking, just small talk, asking me, how do you like your job and how do you like living in California? And my daughter says that you have been very kind to her, and I want to thank you for treating my daughter with respect. And we were talking back and forth, just little stuff. And I was beginning to feel a little bit better about him. He's talking normal human things. So I'm feeling a little bit better, a little bit more at ease. And he knew that. And then he said to me, he said, "Remember back when you were 8 years old and back in Florida and your dad built a new back porch? Remember the back porch was falling apart and your dad's brother, they built a new back porch at the house? And your dad used green lumber. It smelled funny because it was green lumber. And you remember that when your dad built that back porch?" And it shocked me. And I didn't want to show tears in front of my girlfriend, but it was shocking. And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, did that happen?" I said, "Yes, it did." And he says, "And remember one night you were in bed, and you got out of bed and you went out the back porch, remember? And the moon was really bright. And remember how you picked the wood with your finger? You were peeling the wood because it smelled funny at night, the green lumber. And you picked it and were smelling the wood. You remember doing that?" And again, I was even more frightened? And I said, yes. And he said, well, did you do that or didn't you? I said, yes, I did. And he said, and what else did you do? You talked to God, didn't you? I said, yes. And he said, what did you say to God? Remember, you looked up in the moon and you talked to God. And I was just looking at him. I was scared. And he said, what did you do? You said to God that you would like to do something important with your life. Isn't that what you said? And I said, yeah, that's what I said. He said, well, that's why you're here. We brought you here to let you do something important with your life. After all, you asked. And so we've decided to give you something important to do. And I said, I don't understand. He says, not important. But you did say that, didn't you? Yes. How would I know that? He said, how did I know all of that? And I said, I don't know how you know that. And he said, I know that because we were there. When you were talking to God, we were there. So you wanted an opportunity to do something, so we're going to give you an opportunity to do something. And I said, who is we? Who are you talking about? He said, that's not important right now. You'll learn later. And he said, but we also, he said, you're very interested in UFOs and aliens and spooky stuff like that, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I'm very interested. And he said, yeah, I know. We know that. And he said, would you like to see some UFOs tonight? And I said, yes, I'd like to. He said, well, I can do that for you. Come on, I'll show you. So I got up with him, and the two girls got up. And the two girls, myself and the father, the four of us go out in the front lawn, probably about midnight, 1959, and he looks up in the sky and he starts inaudibly talking. You know, he's moving his mouth, he's talking, but you can't hear him. And then he turns to me and he said, they said they'll be here in a couple of minutes. They'll be coming from over here, southeast. They'll be coming here in a couple of minutes. And I said, who? And he said, you'll see. You wanted to see UFOs, right? Yes. Well, just wait, they'll be here. And so I look at my girlfriend and she's looking at me, and the look on her face was, she was saying to me, yeah, I told you my father was an interesting and important man. I told you. And I was looking at her trying to imagine, is this a trick or but how would he know the things about me that he knew? And who is this man that I'm fascinated with? And sure enough, a couple of minutes later, 3 UFOs, disc-shaped things about the size of the full moon in the sky. That's how big they were, not a little light, full moon size. 3 of them come out over in a triangle formation and stop right over the top of me, right over the top of us. And I'm looking up at this, and the bottoms, they were all 3 identical, making no sound. And they were all 3 circulating like a pie with 6 or 8 slices, and each slice is a different color. But they were vibrant colors, like laser colors, very vibrant, oranges, pinks, and greens. And they were circulating, but not so fast as to blend the colors. And 3 of them. And I'm standing there looking at them thinking, my God, this is beautiful. And it's such an eerie feeling. It's quiet at night. It's late. I'm standing out here with a man that's blowing my mind, and I'm looking at 3 UFOs. And then he looks up and starts inaudibly talking to them again. And he said, they said that they're leaving now. They're going now. And so they did. They started moving. They went north very slow, until they were out of sight. And I said, what was that? And he said, that's us. And he said, why are you in California? Why did you come here? And I said, I don't know. I have no idea. He said, that's right. We brought you here. You said you wanted to do something for God, didn't you? Yes. Well, then we have brought you here so you can do something for God. And I said, what? Oh, I don't understand what you're talking about. He says, we have something for you to do. And we've been watching you from day one. We've already decided a long time ago, even before you were 8 years old. We've already decided. So we brought you here to start you on your journey, to begin your life for you. We're going to guide your life so that you learn what you're supposed to. You will have all the experiences that we will see to it that you will have, so that one day, he said, what you're going to do for us will not happen till the last part of your life. It's going to be the very last part of your life. But when that day comes, you will know what it is you will have to do. You will know what it is you have to do. Right now, it's not important. You're just going out and live your life. We will see to it that you meet who you're supposed to and learn what you're supposed to. And when it's time, we'll let you know what you need to do. We'll be there. And so I used to go over to his house. That night, he said, to start you on your journey tonight, I'm going to start you on your new journey, where you're going in your life. I'm going to give you a book. The book he gave me was called The Complete Works of Charles Fort, F-O-R-T, Charles Fort. Charles Fort is very well known for his work. He actually wrote 3 books, probably a lot more, but the 3 most important books were put into one big volume now, and so you can get it as a very thick volume called The Complete Works of Charles Fort. And what made his book so interesting, and why the Father gave it to me, is that Charles Fort has documented a thick book on all the strangest things which have happened in the world, which were documented and which have no explanation at all. No one even ventures to even try and answer it. It's just strange stuff that have happened, and no one has any idea how or what it means. And he documents it. But what makes his book so interesting is that he documents everything with every paragraph. Every paragraph has documentation, where he saw this, where he found this, where he got this information, where he got that information, and what page it was on, who wrote the article, and everything. So you can find anything. It's all right there documented, paragraph by paragraph. And the kind of things he found were just so extraordinary, mind-blowing stuff. It's all there. The world is filled with strange things that have happened that nobody has any explanation for. And when he gave me that book, I know he gave it to me because it opened up my mind to the occult world. Occult simply means hidden. And so that book opened my mind at 19 years old because I had already been well involved in the other world knowledge and strange stuff in my childhood. But for the first time, I had it documented, strange stuff that nobody understands how it happened, and it's all documented in one book. And that, I believe he gave me that book to get me started in realizing that the world is far stranger than you imagine. Far, far stranger. I like that one quote of the astronomer, I think it was, who said the universe is not stranger than you imagine. The universe is stranger than you can imagine.
That was the great British astronomer and physicist Sir Arthur Eddington.
Incredible quote. That's exactly right. And when you read Charles Fort's book, you think, wow, this stuff actually happened, and it just defies your imagination as to what all of these incidents. And so to get me interested, he said, let me give you an idea about what's in the book. And it's a big, thick book, and he just opened it up, and just nonchalantly opened it up to a page. I now know that it was not nonchalant. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly how to get my attention. It's otherworldly how he knew my psyche and my spirit to get my attention. And he says, let me read you something. And the first thing he read me was about a city, a little town, a small town in California, mid-California, back in the 1860s, I think, 1870s. And it's happened to that little town 2 or 3 times. In that same town, on a clear day, and a sunny, clear day with no clouds in the sky, enormous boulders, tons and tons of boulders would fall out of the sky on a clear day. And they had newspaper people there reporting it. The townspeople saw it. But the thing that made it interesting is that the boulders were like, some of them 2 and 3 tons apiece, falling out of a clear blue sky. But they didn't fall at the normal rate of speed. It took all day for them to come down, all day long. They come down slow. And when they hit the ground, they would bury themselves in the ground where they normally would at normal speed, and the dirt would fly up very slow, all in slow motion. And the whole thing was, you could sit and watch it all day long. It was all in slow motion. But when when the rock had finally settled, it would be exactly where it would have been normally, and it would be exactly the way, what would have happened normally, but it took all day for it to happen. So it was obviously a time warp, that these things were coming from somewhere out there in a time warp and hitting this little town. It's happened 2 or 3 times to the same town. And it's documented, it really happened. And if a house or a car or something was in the way, it's too bad, because this thing is just coming down and would just crash right through the house, crash through the car, whatever, and there's nothing you're going to do to stop them, because they're in another time warp. And how do you explain that? Nobody could. But that's just, and then he looked at me, he said, that's just one story. And he said, here's another one. And he just run through the book and found another page and read another paragraph. And the second paragraph was even stranger than the first one. And he read me about 3 or 4 different paragraphs. And he said, do you see what I'm talking about? And I said, yes, I love this book. I love this stuff. So he said, well, I'm giving it to you. Go read it. And so I started going over to the house. Sometimes I'd go over in the evenings after work. I'd go over and sit and talk with him, and he would tell me all kinds of strange things about what it's like on other worlds out there, and who's here on the earth, and where they've come from, the different alien life forms, where they've come from, and why they're here.
Do you remember anything about what he told you?
Yeah, well, we used to go up to Palmdale 2 or 3 times, he and the 2 girls and the wife and myself, and those were incredible, precious times. The girl would come over and said, we're going up this morning, come with us. And I'd go over there, and I'll go in his car, and we go up in the desert, about 50 miles north of Los Angeles, up in the high desert, and it's way out in the desert. And the girls would go with their mom, and they'd be wandering around the desert. But he and I would go, and he would show me mounds and holes in the mounds and holes in the earth that I'd never seen before. And he says these were made by aliens many, many years ago. And he said, I want to show you, and we went to some mines also. He knew where these different mines were. And but he was telling me that there are certain places under the earth that these particular aliens live, where they stay, and it's under the earth. And he said, I'll show you a couple of the places, but you don't want to go in them. It's their property, not yours. So, and they look at it very jealously as their property. So don't mess with their property, don't go in. They didn't ask you to come in. And he said, but as long as I'm with you, you'll be all right, because I'll tell you where not to go.
Do you remember where those places were?
Yeah.
And who those aliens were and what they did?
I don't remember the names of aliens, but the exact information. But I remember where those places are.
Where are they?
Well, I would say I couldn't take you right to it, but I could take you to the area and say, okay, let's go out here and you'll find them. It's up in Palmdale, off of what is it? Parablossom Highway. I think it's Parablossom Highway. And it's off of Parablossom Highway, but I'd have to get out there, and I would know it when I see it. Even though it's changed a lot out there, But I remember about a year or so ago, I was driving from Vegas, coming back through, and I remember this area, and I slowed down and stopped, and I remember this dirt road. So it's still there. It still hasn't been built up and built over.
And what's the story, as best you remember, of what these aliens are doing in that area? Do you remember anything about what he told you?
Not really. He was, I think basically what I got from it, what I remembered from it, was that there were different ones here, and that there are good ones and bad ones. And he said that even some of the good ones here, he said, but we have enemies. They have come here, and we have other business out there with them. And since we're here, they came here. And so we have enemies here. Not human enemies. We got serious enemies here. But we've got a standoff. We're powerful and they are too, but we got kind of like a standoff. But we have enemies, and we are their enemy. And he was telling me about the reptile aliens. That was back in 1959.
And what did he tell you about that?
I don't remember specifically, but I just remember him talking about reptile aliens, and I really didn't comprehend what he was talking about exactly. It was such a strange concept to me, reptile aliens, at 1959. I don't even know what he's talking about. But the one thing that stands out in my mind above everything is that I knew that this man was absolutely of another world, and I connected with it. It was as if I wasn't that I understood it and was into it. No, this was part of me. It's part of my person, who I am. But he was initiating me into a secret of who I really am. And I felt it. I just felt I'm part of him. I know now who I am, and I know that I'm